Hello and welcome to another video by Rick Miracle. Hey, in my series Freemasonry and Satanism, we're reaching a milestone here. When I say we, me who makes videos and reads books, people who watch my videos, the comments you post, and anybody else who follows my series. And I can include all the other tens of thousands, maybe a million or more other videos on YouTube and alternate websites and information in books and magazines, Main Street news, activities going on. A lot of people are aware. They say about 15%. That means 85% are not aware what's going on. And crazy as it is, stuff like this is in the news. I've been reading this book today. Blindsided. Planet passes in 2003. Earth Changes by Mark Hazelwood. I went down to the pool, did some laps and get some exercise. Believe it or not, I don't spend all my time on a computer or reading books or making videos. All kinds of crazy predictions. And the milestone I'm reaching is September is next month. This is August 15th. So this will be almost 4 years that I've been making videos after starting my investigation on a big zero birthday when I went down to Costa Rica, sat at a tiki bar, and I was the only American there. And a lot of guys were there drinking beer. I was drinking a Presidente beer. And they were talking amongst themselves, talking about their countries, their families, their jobs. And finally somebody turned to me and said, "Where are you from?" I said, "Well, I live in Florida. I grew up in Maine." And they said, "Man, we really feel sorry for you Americans. You don't know what's going on in the world." Of course, I thought, that's crazy. But I listened. I'm a patient guy. And then when I went back to Florida, I went and did some research. And it really caused me a lot of anxiety. Because you know what? They were right. I was oblivious to what is going on in the world. So anyways, I made it my business to start an investigation back in 2005. Changed my life. I had a house a block from the beach, another house over there on the St. Johns River north of Orlando. I even rented a house up in Maine, an 1884 house, 2-story, on Sunset Hill, where I had purchased 55 acres of land up the dirt road. And I had motorcycle, boats, money, traveling. But I had that big zero birthday, and some people have a change of life. And I was so startled by what they told me. And one of the things was the chemtrailing, which I could visibly see in the sky. And I mentioned it to my friends who giggled and laughed and said I was crazy. One of my friends, who was an American airline pilot, we were in the garage after a day out on our motorcycles. 4 or 5 people would do our Saturday run or something. And I pointed them out. I said, "Wow, look at that. They're doing it again." And my American airline friend said, "Rick, you better stop looking into this. You're going to get yourself in trouble." What a strange response. Well, anyways, my friend who was the American Airlines pilot had purchased a second home in the mountains of North Carolina. And we as a group of people would go up there in the summer. I became familiar with North Carolina in the mountains. Fell in love with it. I had traveled to Maine and opened up another business up there, but realized that my age and the Maine winter temperature was just too much for me. And the Florida temperature was too much for me as I was getting older. So I decided to relocate myself to a lesser populated area and a higher elevation, because I learned a few things about some pending doom, World War III, chemtrailing, HARP systems, pole shifting, threats of World War III, droughts, volcanoes, all kinds of threats out there. Anyways, I took it upon myself to begin an investigation and made a promise to myself that I wouldn't deem myself worthy to write a book until I had read and researched for 10 years. I figured, how else could you be an authority? So here's my bookcase. 10 years of videos. I read more books than this. But once I started making videos, I actually forgot a lot of the books I had read over 10 years. So those are 4-foot wide shelves, and on the top, I ran out of room on this particular bookcase, so I put some boxes on the top. And there are 50 books on the top shelf, 4 feet wide. So almost 200 books, and I can't fit the Encyclopedia Judaica books on this bookshelf. I've got 16 of these now, so that would be another 4 foot, and I've made a lot of videos on that material. So certainly a couple hundred books that I've been making videos on. So we're talking about a milestone. This is series number 149. Going to be doing a video on this book. You can see I put numbers on them, then they go on my shelf. This book right here is this book right here where my finger is. Number 149. So this would be number 1 up here, up to number 44 right here. But some of these books, there's more than one. If it's the same author or he published volume 1, volume 2, like Rabbi Marvin Antelman publishing To Eliminate the Opate, People's Belief in God, volume 1, volume 2. So that would have accounted for just one number in the series, which I don't have them all memorized. So we have all this conspiracy stuff. I haven't done a book review on this one yet. The Aquarian conspiracy. The information in another guy that I haven't done a book review of or read his book. Jesse Ventura. American conspiracies. So if there's 200 books on that bookshelf, including the Encyclopedia Judaica, I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 more bookshelves in this room. So what is the Occult Theocrasy? Edith Starr Miller, Lady Queenborough of Britain, 1933. Think about that. What's that have to do with Freemasonry, Israel, Zionist, Communist, Satan, the occult, magic, witchcraft, and so much more? What's it got to do with today? And this threats of blindsided. Planet X. My friend calls me once in a while from Key West, John, and he says, Rick, what do you think? Is Planet Nibiru coming? Is there going to be a pole shift? I'm down here in Key West. Should I get out of here and evacuate? So I guess that's the million-dollar question. None of us know what or when what is going to happen. But it appears that something is going to happen. I was going through some of my pictures when I downloaded that picture of the bookcase I took today to show you. And I noticed this other picture, so I'll read it because it pertains to this conversation. It's a picture of the Vatican there. As soon as the King Messiah will declare himself, he will destroy Rome and make a wilderness of it. Thorns and weeds will grow in the Pope's palace. Then he will start a merciless war on the non-Jews and will overpower them. He will slay them in mass, kill their kings, and lay waste to the whole Roman land. He will say to the Jews, I am the King Messiah, for whom you have been waiting. Take the silver and gold from the Goyim. And this is from a biblical book or a Kabbalistic book, like a Bible of the Jews, called the Talmud. It has everything to do with what's in here. A friend of mine sent me an email. He said, Rick, look at this. I don't know if everybody's heard of the 5G network. And just what we need, more threats of world destruction, more danger. But new legislation in North Carolina would allow harmful 5G towers, cell towers, in neighborhoods, no citizen feedback allowed. You can't make this up. You can go look it up. So this is a natural news. I've had some people complain they can't get to some of these websites. Somebody's blocking them. The telecommunications industry can't wait to release the next generation of mobile phone technology. A controversial network standard known as 5G, which could be unveiled as soon as 2019. I believe it's already in play. And apparently one researcher, Igor Max, says it's being released in Australia. They're testing it. But many citizens who will be directly affected by the technology's high-intensity radio frequencies aren't being kept in the loop about what's going on, including in the state of North Carolina, where legislators are now pushing to have 5G towers located in neighborhoods without the consent of local residents. The House Bill HB 310 would allow 5G transmitters to be installed on existing towers in public right-of-ways, greenways, conservation lands, that would be your parks, and other types of property outside of right-of-way, with the exception of single-family residences. So they can't put one up exactly in your backyard. Without any input whatsoever from those who live near these future transmitter facilities. It would also go a step further in actually barring local governments from passing their own laws. Why would they do that? To prevent this technological invasion from occurring against the will of the people, all, of course, for the benefit of the mobile phone providers. And if you think that's the real purpose, think again. So there's more here. Please go look it up. I do have a degree in electronic technology from United Electronic Institute. It's a 2-year technical school. I also graduated from a community college in Florida, a 2-year school. So 2 years, and 2 years is 4 years, and I've had a lot of continuing education since then. I've always read science magazines and non-fiction material books. So I can say that I know a little bit, especially after just starting my research in 2005, reading a couple hundred books plus, hundreds of magazines, tens of thousands of press releases, made comments on the computer, printed everything out, all kinds of other documents that were mentioned in videos I watched, going on 13 years. And then, of course, I get these little newsletters from Tex Mars. The Jewish Messiah will be the Antichrist, 55 proofs in the Holy Bible. So I just read to you this stuff from the Talmud. So there's all kinds of prophecy out there. They're going to destroy the world as we know it. So what's in this book? And what's been going on lately? One more comment I might make. We're all aware of the thing that just happened with the white supremacists or KKK or the White Lives Matter march or protest demonstration in Virginia and of Alabama and apparently other places. So these are organizations, secret societies, KKK, and these other groups. So who called them out? And also at the same time, who called out the anti-fascist groups, and where the people even had baseball bats and masks and all kinds of other things to confront these groups. And according to Infowars.com and Lee Stranahan, in a conversation, they noticed that some of the pictures of the people from the anti-fascist group look like people in other events, like the Occupy movement from the Obama regime, the Black Lives Matter when Obama was president. Now they're the anti-fascist movement. So there's all these groups and organizations that can be pulled out for use anytime they want. The powers that be who are trying to bring us this new age and new world order, apparently in cahoots, so who knows in control. But there's organizations like the Illuminati, the Freemasons, the Rosicrucians, Zionists, the Banksters, the Illuminati, the Communists, and New Age, and so many more, thousands of them. And if you've been watching my videos, you are aware of a lot of those. Bilderberger groups, Bohemian Grove, Club of Rome, Knights of Malta, Knights of Columbus, Wiccans, witches, other witches' covens, thousands. And apparently we got things like spirit cooking, Pizzagate, child porn, child abduction, pedophilia, child and other human sacrifices, all kinds of satanic rituals on the Emmys, the Grammys, the Olympic openings, Super Bowl halftime shows, tunnel openings in Switzerland, Shiva, the goddess of destruction, projected onto the Empire State Building, a goat projected onto the Hoover Dam, the Illuminati card game that has shown a lot of things that have already happened, like 9/11, all kinds of other major events. So there's this game afoot for some kind of destruction. And part of that is, of course, when apparently Russia was intervening with the intentional destruction of Syria after all the other countries that were overthrown in the Middle East. As punishment for that, these powers that be instigated revolutions and riots in the Ukraine, agitations by some, again, selected groups. Money had to be sent in. Apparently they were saying George Soros and other people spent millions, if not $1 billion or more, to do all this stuff. All right, so it's a long time movement, we can say, Another organization was the Battle for Seattle, the Peace and Justice Movement, Soros Foundation. Just some notes I took here to just add to the insane, apparently. Another thing I learned that shocked me, I thought I'd been learning a lot and was pretty much aware and had the evidence. It just gets worse. I'm familiar with the Russian Revolution in 1917, after World War I. And of course, we're all familiar with World War I, which began in 1914, June, 6 months after they took over the USA money supply by creating the Federal Reserve at Christmas time. They probably couldn't have had World War I if they didn't take over the USA money supply, in cahoots with President Woodrow Wilson. And we're aware of 9/11, World War II, all kinds of other assassinations of presidents in Costa Rica, Panama, other countries that have been taken down, bankrupt, taken over. But here's a big one I didn't know about. The Armenian genocide of 1915 to 1923. So that was at the end of World War I. But 1 to 1.5 million Christian Armenians and other people were killed. And apparently, I hate to say it, a declaration of Young Turks was a revolution by its leaders of the Ottoman empires, and these Young Turks were Jewish leaders. So the Turks, the Ottoman Empire, was standing in the way of the Jewish people worldwide of seizing the Palestinian property to start the country of Israel. World War II, they used to get the country of Palestine to start the country of Israel. World War I, they did the same thing. Brought about the Balfour Agreement to get the Palestinians land to start the country of Israel. The Zionist movement's been going on for hundreds, if not thousands of years, of the Jewish people yearning for the Palestinian land to create their homeland to fulfill some kind of prophecy. And I just read to you about the destruction planned for Rome and the mass murder and theft of all the people on the planet that's in the Jewish book, the Talmud. How much more information do we need? Let me read from this book, and maybe it'll give us some more clues. I decided to read the chapter 7 on Judaism, the Pharisees, from this book, Occult Theocrasy. Before I do that, I'll just tell you some of the other things in the index here. 1933, just so you can see some of what we're up against and other material that I have to make more videos on eventually. The religion of the secret, the meaning of occultism, Brahmanism, Mandeism, Zoroastrianism, Jainism, Confucianism, Taoism, Egyptian esotericism, Judaism, the Pharisees, that's chapter 7, pagan mysteries, the Druids, Christianity, witchcraft, the Gnostics, the Heterics, the Yadis, devil worshippers, Orthodox Islam, the Druids, the Assassins, the Knights Templar, the Knights of Malta, the Rosicrucians, Cathars, religious Freemasons, the Order of Religious Freemasons, the Grand Lodge of England, the Gospel of Revolution, the Preparation, General Pike and the Big Union, Albert Pike, General PP and the Big Union, Albert Pike and Giuseppe Mazzini. Remember in 1880 something, Albert Pike, the leader of the Freemasons, wrote a letter to his friend Mazzini in Italy, talking about the 3 world wars that would be required to bring about the New World Order. And he mentioned who the wars would have to be fought between. And the first 2, was correct. And apparently, according to the turmoil going on in the Middle East and 9/11, in World War III, if it hasn't already begun, which it appears it has, but most people in the world are not aware of it, is between the same parties that he mentioned. The Illuminati of Spain, the Order of the Jesuits. I'm just skipping over some of these titles. The Ancient Order of the Hibernians, Rite of Swedenborg, or Illuminati. So there is an Illuminati. A lot of people giggle when you say communism, Illuminati, witchcraft. 1933, this book. The Royal Order of Scotland, the Illuminati of Avignon, Ancient and Accepted Scottish Rite, the Rite of Zenendorf, the Illuminati of Bavaria, the Jacobins, the Knights Templar, Armenia, America. So let me start reading from this book. It's going to be a very interesting conversation, and it might illuminate some of us to what's going on in the world and why they would be bringing this big apparent net around us with electromagnetic towers, dumping chemicals in the sky, propaganda in the news, demonstrations planned, all to control what and how we think, incite people, apparently trying to create a revolution or support for World War III. All right, Chapter 7, Judaism, the Pharisees. Judaism has been described by Moses Mendelssohn, a learned Jew, in this way. Judaism is not a religion, but a law religionized. So they've made up some laws, and they've made a religion around those laws. And if you read about the laws in the Talmud, you will be horrified. You will be sick. You will say, that's just insane. We'll get to that. This definition does away effectively with the erroneous belief prevalent among the non-Jews that Judaism is a religion. Okay. In spite of the loud and frequent assertions made by Jews and Christian divines alike, contending that the Jews were the first monotheists, one God, it is a well-proven fact that the high initiates of the Memphis priesthood were monotheists long before the Jews ever went to Egypt. And I notice a lot of our cities, like Memphis in Tennessee, and many other cities around the country, and mountains like the Pisgah Mountains, are named after these things in the Middle East, ancient history. I keep seeing that pop up. Judaism would be best described as a rite or a compendium of rites, for if one lends belief to the existence of the Jewish lawgiver, Moses, one must bear in mind that he first studied among the high initiates of Egypt and later became the pupil and son-in-law of the black Jethro, the Egyptian magician, whom one might call the father of Voodism, name given to a magic practices and rites performed by the Negroes. Voodism, voodoo, So I guess some of us could call that the Kabbalah, witchcraft, magic, mysticism, the occult, all these secret societies studying this stuff. This is important to think about when we see what they're trying to do with these towers. And if you go look up the 5G towers they're installing in Australia, they're strange looking towers. They look like a can of Pringles. You know, you get those long cans of potato chips, about this long, this big around. These towers look like that. Strange. The closer one studies the history of the Jews, the closer it appears that they are neither a religious entity nor a nation. The absolute failure of Zionism, remember this book is 1933, which was a desperate effort on the part of certain Jewish leaders to bind all the Jews of the world into a national entity. So if you've been watching my videos that I've been making from Jewish history, anti-Semitism, Zionism, the Kabbalah, and so much more out of the Encyclopedia Judaica and many other books, there have been great efforts to make sure that all the Jews stuck together, and they even created artificially, intentionally, false flags, anti-Semitism everywhere to create fear so the Jews who didn't want to be part of all this would huddle together in ghettos or cities or places. So somebody was creating all this chaos and anarchy. And think about it. With the white supremacist movement, KKK, White Lives Matter, Black Lives Matter, all these groups, they're doing the same thing, creating this chaos and anarchy, incitement in the United States and all over Europe. I guess these guys have a modus operandi. They have a rule book on how to do these revolutions, and they've been doing it for hundreds or 1,000 years or more. Their philosophy is divide and conquer, and they use something called the Hegelian dialectic, where they cause two other groups to fight each other, like they did in World War I, World War II, revolutions in France, revolutions in Russia, revolutions in Germany, all over. They do stir up hatred, deception, propaganda. So the parties will fight and kill each other, and they stand there observing the event and wind up owning all the gold and property and the power. They're in control. Judaism is not a religion, and the Jews are not a nation. They are a sect with Judaism as a rite. So they are a cult. We all know what cults are. The obligations and rules of the rite for Jewish masses are contained in the Talmud and the Shulchan Aruch, can't say these names, but the esoteric teachings for the higher initiates are to be found in the Kabbalah. We've been talking about the Kabbalah. We've been talking about mysticism. That's why I've been doing it. We've been talking about channeled material. What are those entities from the invisible realm, whether you want to call it the underworld, Hades, hell, or angelic beings from heaven, or Pleiades, or Orion and other star systems? What do you believe? I've made a lot of videos, as we are already aware, reading these books and making videos since 2013 September. So almost 4 years, and I'm reaching a milestone, 150. This is series 149. In my series 150 will be a 4-year review. I'm going to go through a few short moments on each book, make a statement, May take me part 1, part 2, part 3, 2-hour videos. I don't know. I'm not going to try to be in a hurry. But I'll start at the top at number 1 and work across to number 49, then the next row, then the next row, then the next row. Ironically, there's 4 rows of books here, and this is 4 years worth of work. That's my culmination of 4 years. Then I'll have to decide what I'm going to do for year 5. So a lot of this stuff from these Jewish Bibles, books on the Kabbalah, which is witchcraft magic, some kind of cult, is to be found in the Kabbalah. You get it? You got it? Therein are contained the mysterious rites of evocations, incantations. It's where they have this prayer or something like abracadabra, hocus pocus. But these incantations or evocations, some people have those rosary beads and they go 1 bead at a time saying a prayer, saying the next bead, the next prayer, moving their hand to the next bead, the next prayer, over and over and over, making some prayer to some deity. Think about that. Even Stephen Greer, the Serious Disclosure Project, trying to talk about aliens, UFOs, and beings they are contacting. He gets groups together, and they go to the beach in California, and they do evocations. It says it in the newsletters he sent to me that I've shown on videos. And these beings appear, and these channelers, Barbara Marciniak, when she goes into a trance and she says, the Palladians are here, the Pixies are here, the angels are here. All these beings, I'm just saying, who are all these channelers channeling, and all these popular websites on the internet and YouTube videos that a lot of people are into, following this information? Just saying, I'm reading this book and throwing my 2 cents in here. So apparently the Jewish religion has the Kabbalah, all those books, the Talmud, mysterious rites for evocations, the indications and keys to practice for conjuration of supernatural forces. You get it? Got it? See why I chose this book for 149 before I do my 4-year review and series number 150? The science of numbers and astrology. So now we know what the Jewish religion is. It's a cult. And the people don't really have a nation. They never had a nation. And there could be a lot of deception, so this book says. The practical application of the Kabbalist knowledge is manifested in the use made of it through the ages by Jews to gain influence both in the higher spheres of Gentile life and over the masses. So these people went out of their way to connect to powerful people all over the world for the past couple thousand years. Married into kings and queens family, infiltrated the Vatican, and everywhere where there was power. They were obsessed with that. And these people in power, get this, I'll read the next sentence. Sovereigns, that would be people who own their own property or own kingdoms, kings and queens, princes and dukes, etc. Sovereigns and popes, both, usually had one or more Jews as astrologers and advisors, and they frequently gave Jews control over their very life by employing them as physicians. So you see these pictures of kings and queens and even the Vatican, and they got these magicians in the background. There's famous people. What's a magician? That would be magic. What's magic? That would be witchcraft. The occult. Political power was thus gained by the Jews in almost every Gentile. So we are called Gentile if you're not a Jew by them. Country alongside with financial power, since Jewish court bankers manipulated state funds and taxes. Through the ages also can be followed the spreading power of the sect. And no more awful example of the devastating and destructive power of the penetration of a secret subversive society has ever been witnessed. Secret subversive society. So we know now that a lot of the presidents, congressmen, House of Representatives, CEOs of large corporations, rich, powerful elite, meet at the Bilderberger meetings or Bohemian Grove or other secret societies, Council of Foreign Relations, Heritage Foundation, so many more, Club of Rome. These people are control of our world, and apparently they're in league with these secret societies and cults. And apparently they're part of this mission to destroy humanity. And I have researched for 13 years and been making videos for 4 years from these books, which seem to all collaborate what I'm saying. Through the ages also can be followed the spreading power of the sect, and no more awful example of the devastating and destructive power of the penetration of the secret subversive society has ever been witnessed. And these are the people who are installing the 5G network, who have been chemtrailing us using HAARP microwave transmitters, Jade Helm 15, did 911, assassinated President Kennedy, and apparently so much more, control all these groups and organizations that wind up marching or protesting and fighting in our streets for public consumption, to incite hatred, to have the left and the right, the progressives and the liberals versus the Christians and the conservatives, to have the American versus the Arabs, Americans versus the Mexicans, the men versus the women, straights versus the gays. You get it? Do I have to keep on going on? Britain versus Germany, Europe versus Russia, Russia versus China, China versus Japan, China versus India, India versus Pakistan, and so on and so on and so on. The hand is out there all over the world. Subversive societies, and they plan some gloom and doom for planet Earth. And again, you saw my picture of the books. I did not know where this investigation was going to lead me when I started. Believe me, I didn't know. I took it where it led me, and I took it from books. I didn't make it up. And documents and press releases, and paying attention to the goings-on in the real world. Discussing it with tens of thousands of people. Everywhere I went, I tried to talk to people about this and that. And generally speaking, people would shout at me and say, "Shut up, I don't care." I would point up at the chemtrails, and they would refuse to tilt their head. They would say, "I don't care, I don't want to know." Some people would say, "Yes, I know something's going on, but I'm going to party and live each day until it happens." One lady was holding a 3-year-old child in her arms. I said, "Well, what about the children? What about the children? What about the next generation? Are we humans so far gone we don't care about that? We don't care that they're destroying all those cities and towns in the Middle East? We don't care that even during World War II they were carpet bombing all the Germans, men, women, and children? And Winston Churchill said he was going to inflict as much pain and suffering as he could. And the Germans have been suffering ever since. But what about the Russians and the Russian Revolution by the Jewish Bolshevik people? 25 million admitted in a Israeli popular newspaper. Jeff Runtz, in his website, there's a paper saying about 100 million Christians and other good people were killed during the Russian Revolution in 1917. And of course, 1908 or 1915, 1 to 1.5 million Armenians in the eastern portion of Turkey, Armenia, were killed when the Jewish people took over that country. World War I, World War II, same thing. Russian Jewish elite Illuminati, whether they were from Russia, Germany, or America, or Britain, were behind the scene controlling the operations. I've got books on it that we've gone over. Henry Ford's books and Bloodlines of the Illuminati, Fritz Springmeier. Please go see my series, Freemasonry and Satanism, number 1, number 2, number 50, number 75, number 125, up to 149, this video. All these books I read from the pages and share. All right, get this. Page 76. With its Benai Birth Supreme Council as the directing head, the sect with its members swarming among all nations. So this is one of their religious cult groups. Members swarming among all nations have become the sovereign power ruling in the councils of all nations and governing their political, economic, religious, and educational policies by Edith Starr Miller, also known as Lady Queenborough of Britain in Occult Theocrasy in 1933. And look at the symbols on the front of this book. Freemasonic symbols, the Israel six-pointed star symbol, the globe with the wings, the cross with the crown on top, the columns, the swatch sticker, pyramids. You can see the upside-down star, the devil. So I've been reading a lot of books trying to figure out WTH. What the heck is going on? I wanted to know. What can I say? I knew something was up. So did we all. Remember, I started in 2005. We all lived through 2001. We believed the government story. We now find out that was a big lie. All right, in his book, Nicholas II, Nechvodado, however you say his name, explains that, so that's Nicholas II, you can go look it up. The Chaldean science acquired by many of the Jewish priests during the captivity of Babylon gave birth to the sect of the Pharisees, whose name only appears in the Holy Scriptures and in the writings of the Jewish historians after the captivity 606 before Christ, BC. So apparently the Hebrews who were enslaved in Egypt did not have magic or the Kabbalah before their enslavement in Egypt by the Pharaoh. And remember, what that is, where they have the pyramids and the Sphinx, the ancient location, according to Zechariah Stitchens, of the people from planet Nibiru, Planet X, according to the story they're telling us. I'm not trying to say it's true. The Anunnaki beings, whom they say mix their DNA with the animals on planet Earth to create us humans as slaves. But anyways, apparently in Egypt, they did have magic, and apparently you couldn't leave the country of Egypt. They had guards at all the entry or exit points, and you would be searched for any evidence that you would be carrying out some of the magic incantations, objects, anything to do with magic and knowledge of it, they did not want to leave the country. So remember also when the Jews did leave the country, there was a lot of supposedly magic involved. The parting of the Red Sea, the locusts, the water turning to blood, and so much more. So what are we talking about? So apparently this is where they got their magic, occult, religious rites, whatever, the Kabbalah, mysticism. They got it while they were spending time in Egypt. And then they used that as their tool for world domination and control over kings and queens and the Vatican and people all over the world. Ironically, apparently, according to this material, that when they went to China, the Chinese would not cooperate and buy into their propaganda or their money lending. They couldn't make any money in China, so they got upset and just left. Wouldn't it be nice if we people of the rest of the world would have been as smart as the Chinese and not allowed them to infiltrate our world? The works of the celebrated scientist Monk leave no doubt on the point that the sect appeared during the period of captivity. So a lot of smarter people than me came up with this stuff. I'm not saying everything is accurate, but I am saying that I've spent 13 years reading and 4 years making videos and focusing on all kinds of topics, as we have known if you're watching my videos. You can find a list of my videos on my website, rickmiracle.com. On the top left, click it, cut and paste, and you'll have a cheat sheet of my videos. And on the top right is a place where you can donate to the cause. I would like to expand my horizons, maybe try to publish a book or travel around and speak at places. It takes money. So in the PayPal button there, you can type in for the item, you just type in donation. And then with your debit card, credit card, send some money my way, and I'll acknowledge it in my comment section. So far, nobody has sent 10 cents. And I haven't made a single dime off of YouTube. So much for making money for that. Then they demonetized my videos anyways recently, because apparently the Anti-Defamation League is now in charge of censoring that material. So things are happening. I would like to get out there and talk to groups of people about these books and about what I've discovered, and get more people to wake up to things like the 5G towers. Do you know what the 5G towers means and what it does? When you used to have AM, FM radio or antenna TV, those antennas were about this big, right? Those dishes, some of them were about that big, some were bigger. That's called a wavelength. It resonates. One wave fits in that size of a space. So when you want to tune into channel, you change the wavelength. And inside your radio is these capacitors that go in and go out together, so artificially changing the wavelength. And that was kilohertz. And then as they went into megahertz and gigahertz, little tiny wavelengths, they resonate in that little space, and the faster the wavelength, the smaller the space is. And get this, it resonates in anything it hits that's its size, like an antenna. So if it resonates with the size of the cells in your body, it goes back and forth like a microwave oven over the food and actually heats up and controls and irritates and disturbs your cells. And so much more. And I believe it's all intentional. They even have microwave crowd control vehicles with those dishes on the front, and they aim it at crowds of people and they microwave them. The 5G is actually going to somehow interface with we humans put things in our mind or take things out, read our minds. It penetrates walls everywhere. All of us is going to be some kind of transhumanism. And the people I'm talking about in this book are the people who are in control of all this. If that doesn't disturb you, I don't know what would. All right, back to the book. From the dates, the Kabbalah or tradition of the Pharisees, for a long time their precepts were only transmitted orally, but later they formed the Talmud and received their final form in a book called the Sefer HaZohar, the Book of Splendor. Your book on witchcraft is called the Book of Splendor. How do you think of that? The Pharisees were, as it were, a class whose tendency was to form a kind of intellectual aristocracy. Remember, I did the book called the Jewish Utopia, series number 67 or 62 by William Roberts in the Ultimate World Order, and he was an Secret Service agent for the United States, retired. So I suppose he would know what he's talking about. But he discovered a book in a Texas library called the Jewish Utopia. Like I said, I've read a lot. I've made a lot of videos. You can go verify everything. This is 4 years into making videos. And ironically, doing this is the 149th before I start my 4-year review, going over a little short clip on each book. Probably take a while. And it all does kind of connect the dots. An intellectual aristocracy among the Jews. And they pretty much have dominated even our educational institutions. There was one website I found where there was a blog about a lot of professors, non-Jews, complaining at major universities that the Jewish professors and people in charge looked down on them and treated them horribly bad. They did not even want to communicate or associate or nothing. These people really think and thought that they're elitist. And I think it permeates all of our society. And a lot of good Jewish people who believe in God, not this cult that these other ones are a part of, and other Jews have been coerced to stay a part of, or even made to fear if they tried to get away from it. Plenty of Jews out there exposing that. Benjamin Friedman, his famous speech, go see my video on that, the last Henry Ford video I made, part 6, part 7, series number 45, I think. Anyways, back to the book here. So these people, an intellectual aristocracy, and that's their goal for the world after they decide to kill a lot of people off. At first, they form a sort of brotherhood, a hubraha, the members being called Habroham, or brothers. They were a subversive element aiming at the overthrow of the Sadducean high priesthood, whose members prided themselves on their aristocracy of blood and birth. So these cultist Jewish people, these Pharisees, wanted to dominate the other sects of Jewish societies and tribes, to which the Pharisees opposed an aristocracy of learning. The war waged by the latter extends over a long period of time, and the rivalry was bitter. The Pharisees, who, although they professed as one of their chief tenets the utmost contempt of the Horts, or simple people. So these Pharisees that took over the other tribes of Jewish people have an utmost contempt or we non-Jews, they call goy or goyim, which means cattle, or they call them in 1933, according to this author, simple people. Did not overlook the fact that they needed their mass support for the attainment of their own aim, and they enlisted it by opposing the Sadducean strictness of the law in many instances, namely the observance of the Sabbath. So they were opposing behaving in accordance with God's laws or their religious laws, including observing the Sabbath. The power of the Sadducees fell with the destruction of the temple by Titus. Therefore, the Pharisaic element held supremacy among the Jews. Quoting an acknowledged authority on Judaism, M. Fabian Brenner, Lieutenant General Nichvaldo, further describes the policy of the sect as follows. Before appearing proudly as the expressions of Jewish aspirations, the tradition of the Pharisees had serious difficulties to surmount, the chief of which was to the revival of the Orthodox faith stimulated in the Jewish people by the captivity. To the exiles bemoaning the fall of the Temple of Jerusalem and begging Jehovah, this would be their God, to end the misfortunes of their homeland, the revelation that Jehovah was only a phantom entailed not only certain defeat, but also their own exposure to perils, the least of which would have been the loss of all authority over Israel. The Pharisees, then judging it wiser to capture the confidence of their compatriots, by taking the lead of the religious movement, effected a scrupulous observance of the slightest prescriptions of the law and instituted a practice of complicated rituals, simultaneously, however, cultivating the new doctrine in their secret sanctuaries. You get worn out of speaking. Just think this is important information to realize, that these people have been working overtime for a couple thousand years to take over the world, and they have taken over financial institutions and leaders all over the world, even with the confessions of an economic hitman, John Perkins, talking countries into borrowing millions and billions so they would go into bankruptcy. They controlled the United Nations. They controlled the presidents and leaders during World War I, World War II. They controlled the French Revolution, German Revolution, Russian Revolution, Chinese Revolution, and so much more. You don't think they're serious? And now they control. What's this 5G network going to do when they can manipulate our very cells in our bodies? All right. There were regular secret societies composed during the captivity of a few hundred adepts. At the time of Flavius Josephus, which was that of the greatest prosperity, they numbered only some 6,000 members. This group of intellectual pantheists, that means they believed in many gods, like pansexual is sex with anybody, many things. Pantheists, pagan, many gods, was soon to acquire a directing influence over the Jewish nation. Nothing, moreover, likely to offend national sentiment ever appeared in their doctrines. However saturated with pantheistic Judaism, so this religion in Egypt apparently involved lots of gods, and we know about Isis, Osiris, Ra, Horus, the all-seeing eye on the US $1 bill. This would be one of their gods from Egypt. the deities for all these secret societies, including the Freemasons. And of course, people who join these organizations at a lower level do not know what's going on. You have to be selected to get the inside details to go up in these organizations. And the way they select you is they either have something on you so they can blackmail you, or they find out that you are corrupt and can be bought. Basically, you have a tendency towards evil in your DNA and your soul. And then you're going to wind up being a politician in the United States or any place else in the world where you can be bought. And apparently some of these people grow up through these organizations and get a sense of consciousness, like President John Kennedy, and then they say they're going to try to stop this, and of course they get assassinated. Pretty easy to understand the situation here. We've got some evil forces in charge of our world, and they have gained some technological advantages in the last 100 years, and we all should be a little concerned. They control our water supply, our food, our beverages, everything. Education, the cartoons, the movies, the newspapers, the radio stations. Now they want to digitize the money and microchip people. What role do you think the 5G network will play in all that? Heck, you won't even need magic then. Although these computer systems who are using biological elements of memory, it just makes you wonder if the spiritual world won't actually be able to enter our world and manipulate our systems and control it. Because apparently, quite clearly, like with the channeled information from entities from the invisible reality, these people have been behind the scenes appearing and communicating, whether it's through prophets, psychics, channelers, ghosts, angels, demons, throughout history. Just saying, it is what it is. Pantheistic Judaism that might have been the Pharisees preserved their ethnic pride intact. The religion of man divinized, communicating with spiritual beings, which they had absorbed at Babylon. So they learned all this magic in the Babylonian kingdom, the pharaohs, the pyramids, the Sphinx, the ancient hieroglyphics, the information about the Anunnaki, Planet X, magic, witchcraft. They conceived it solely as applying to the prophet of the Jew. So their whole focus and their whole religion, it says here on page 78, the last sentence, they conceived solely as applying to the prophet of the Jew. So they're using magic and witchcraft to have power and money control over all of us. And great, they are now going to be totally in control with the beast computer and a 5G network all over the world. Billions of walking zombie humans doing whatever they're told. Go down there and march and protest for these different groups. The March on Washington. Down there in the Mexican-U.S. border, the March on the Fence. The March up in Virginia. The anti-fascists. The March in Alabama recently. Driving people crazy, running their cars into groups of people. With the 5G network and other kinds of crazy cell phone tower technologies, cell phones, wireless systems, satellite systems, and so much more. You don't think they can mind control people now? MK Ultra, Project Montauk, Project Paperclip. Go look up these things. These people have been busy for 100 years on learning how to get into our minds. Just saying, it is what it is. It is what it appears to be. So they did all this. They're using all this to apply to the prophet of the Jew, the superior and predestined being. So the Jews will be the superior and predestined being. The promise of universal dominion, which the Orthodox Jew found in the law. Remember President George Bush Sr. and said, out of chaos and anarchy will come the new world order. The rule of law. But when they make the laws, they could have a law that said if you thinking the wrong thought, you can be executed. And they got the 5G network, so they'll know what you're thinking, maybe. The promise of universal dominion, which the Orthodox Jew found in the law, the Pharisees did not interpret in the sense of the reign of the God of Moses over the nation, but in that of the material domination to be imposed on the universe by the Jews. So the Pharisees didn't go with Moses' commandments when he talked to God and brought down from the mountain, Mount Sinai, 2 tablets, the 10 Commandments. Instead, these Pharisees, that of material domination to be imposed on the universe by the Jews. So apparently, if there are aliens in space, the Galactic Federation or the World of Councils, these Jews plan on dominating the whole universe. That might upset them, you think? The awaited Messiah was no longer the Redeemer of original sin, a spiritual victor who would lead the world. It was a temporal king, bloody with battle, who would make Israel master of the world and drag all people under the wheels of his chariot. The Pharisees did not ask this enslavement of the nations of a mystical Jehovah, which they continued worshiping in public, only as a concession to popular opinion, for they expected its eventual consummation to be achieved by secular patience of Israel and the use of human means. Did you just hear what I said? The Pharisees, the leader of the Jews, did not expect this enslavement of nations. They did not expect an actual mystical Jehovah God, which they continually worshipped in public, only as a concession of popular opinion among the Jewish people. For they expected this world domination, its eventual consummation, to be achieved by the secular patience of Israel and the use of human means. So they've taken over governments, they've taken over financial situations, they've taken over militaries, they have nuclear weapons, and they're going to take over the world with secular patience of Israel and the use of human means. They can control the internet. Yes, they do. And they plan on 5G networks and microchipping people. They have big computers called the Beast. Can you see where this is going? Monstrantly different from the ancient law were the such principles as these. For they had nothing one could see, which might have rendered unpopular those who let them filter drop by drop among the Jews. So they really controlled this information and did not want it to get out. The admirably conceived organization of the Pharisees did not fail soon to bear fruit. So their organizational skills and control of all the other Jewish people did not fail soon to bear fruit. And I remember when Jesus showed up on the scene, when they were praying for a Messiah sent by God, which is not complicated to understand. We're all spiritual beings in these biological bodies. And there have been many prophets, and even Jesus accused the Jews, ye are the killers of your prophets. And even Jesus told the Pharisees, ye are from the seed of the serpent, your father. So when the God, whatever God is, our higher self or higher being, sent a spiritual being, his son, into the body of the baby Jesus to teach mankind that we should love one another, of course the Pharisees rejected him and had him crucified. And the spiritual world didn't send just Jesus, We already know they sent other spiritual beings into human bodies. That world does exist, the spiritual realm. And you have the Hindu religion, the Buddhist religion, and all the other religions, the Islamic religion with Muhammad. They became spiritually inspired, communicating with beings from the other side, whether good or bad. I'm not an expert on all these matters and don't intend to try to judge all these other religions. I'm just saying I believe I understand who's behind the scenes, controlling the banks, the systems, Federal Reserve, the militaries, the presidents, the senators, the CEOs, and I'm aware they have plans for the rest of us, and this 5G network isn't going to help us. One cannot better define its actions in the midst of Jewish society better than Jesus Christ, said Mr. Flavian Brevanor, that in comparing it with that of the Freemasons in modern society. A careful, restricted membership, tightly bound, imposing on their members the religion of the secret of the Pharisees, pursued relentlessly their double aim, which was, so the Pharisees and the Jewish people had secret communications and organizations, just like the Freemason societies. All right, moving on. Page 79 on the bottom. Little note here. So a careful restriction, membership tightly bound, imposing on their members the religion of the secret of the Pharisees, pursued relentlessly their double aim, which was, number one, the seizure of political power by the possession of the great political offices, the influence of which was tremendous in the reconstituted Jewish nation, and the conquest of the Sanhedrin, the Jewish parliament. So even these Pharisees were trying to take over any kind of other Jewish government that existed or religious organization. Number two, to modify gradually the conceptions of the people in the direction of their secret doctrine. So like I've been saying, even in the Jewish community, there are forces trying to get them to go over towards the satanic, Lucifer, reptilian, Anunnaki, pagan gods, whatever you want to call it, Palladians, whatever kind of beings are out there, gray aliens, demons, fallen angels. Call it what you will. It's part of this secret religion. The first of these aims was achieved when Henel, a Pharisee of Babylon, who claimed Davionic descent, a descendant of David, King David, whose son Solomon built King Solomon's temple. Or do I have that in reverse? Davionic descent was elected president of the Sanhedrin. Thus ended the bitter fight between the Pharisees and the Sadducees. So like I said, there was a battle in the Jewish tribes. Opposed to Henel was Shammai, a Sadducee supporter of the Sadducean high priest, who was made chief judge of the assembly. The attitude of the two men towards each other is a matter of long record in the Talmud. I want to read from the Talmud before I finish this video. Some horrible information, a horrible type of biblical book, Bible, whatever you want to call it. All right, I'll just read a little more here. Yachanan ben Zikai founded the school of Yamani, Akabya, who with Bar Krokba fomented the revolt against the Romans under Hadrian. Rebelling ended with the order of the dispersion of the Jews in 132 AD. So the Jews were dispersed from the Middle East in 132 AD, almost 1900 years ago. They've been all over the world. They've had these plans. They became advisors and magicians and doctors to kings and queens and leaders and Vaticans and barons and people all over the world. They were very vicious people, and they were hired as procurers of supplies and tax collectors. Just like Tex Mars sent me that newsletter saying that most of the international corporations, the CEOs are Jewish. I didn't believe them. I didn't know this information. But they make a point of getting themselves appointed in those positions. Think about this. When they do take over a particular government or state, who do you think they appoint or they help get elected? Once they're in, and they keep helping themselves and their other people to get elected. And a lot of people who call themselves Christians, who took Christian names, are really part of these secret societies or Jewish. I've had many books where I've read that or documents where they intentionally changed their names to infiltrate our systems. Just like in the 1910, 1920s, whatever, when they had the communist hearings in the U.S. government, Congress, they said they were infiltrating everything. And one of the things they do is change their name. And there's many examples of that. Even famous movie stars, it's been discovered they have a name that you wouldn't suspect. So anybody who's really popular, you need to look closely. They don't let regular people become real popular. Just think about that. Look beyond the person and go to their family. Look up the family tree. You might find out that we've been played for a long time. Also, Simon Ben Yochai, who might be termed the great magician and the father of the Kabbalah. See what I'm saying? He was the great magician and the father of the Kabbalah. Lastly, Judah the prince, who compiled the Babylonian Talmud. Under these chiefs, the Pharisaic power was definitely established in the Sanhedrin, the leader of the Jews. Those among the Jews who clung to the Sadducean tradition and refused to acknowledge the dominion of the Pharisees remained as dissidents. Such were the Samaritans and the Karaites, who rejected the Talmud. So there was a battle in the Jewish world with all the different tribes and religions. And I suspect, as I've been saying from my research, that the people killed in Germany, imprisoned or whatever, were probably not part of the Zionist and the Kabbalistic Jewish organizations. They were dissidents. And you know what happens to dissidents. FYI, when they do have revolutions, let's say they have one in the United States, with the progressive liberals on one side taking over our government, which they already control, and a lot of the Christians or conservatives on the other side, and let's just say that the liberal progressives, not that all the people that are involved in it or are democratic and believe in it, know what's really going on, but if that side wins, they have something called a purge. And they do have computers, and they know what people say, what books people buy, what religions they are, who they know. And just like in Russia and other places where they had these revolutions, in the purge, they kill, assassinate, murder anybody they think might be thinking opposite of what they want them to think, or anybody with any knowledge of what really went on. They did this and do this in every revolution, even in world wars, even in real life. Presidents of countries who don't agree, don't go along. People, even in the material I read in a minute, you're going to see this is the case. The second of the aims and its methods of attainment is exposed in the so-called Protocols of the Wise Men of Zion, so loudly denounced by the descendants of those who devised the secret doctrine in Israel. So the Protocols of Zion, I made that video number 6, I believe. 1, 2, 3. And you can go watch my video or go online and get the Protocols of Zion PDF free. Print it out like I did, read it, highlight it, show it to your friends. You're not going to like what it says. It says what's in this book. It says, people who say it's not true, if you read what it says and you look at the history for the last couple hundred years, you can see that they're following that rule book. People can be in denial all they want. It is what it is. Israel here meaning the Jews as a religious community, most of whom remain quite ignorant of the intricate subversive schemes imputed to them. So here it is saying what I'm saying. A lot of Jewish people, for some reason, think that the rest of us just hate Jews just because we are anti-Semite or something, which couldn't be further from the truth. Most people who are not Jews have no idea what's going on and are as confused as anybody else. It's the people who wake up and start saying, wait a minute, what's with this history? What's going on? Who did this? Where's the evidence? And then you start to speak up. Then you become an anti-Semite because you're talking about the truth, and that could upset some plans for this new age, new world order, and world domination by the Pharisees, who were even controlled, as it says right here, some Jews who remained quite ignorant of the intricate subversion schemes imputed to them. And you got Jewish people who are like Rabbi Marvin Antelman, or PhD Henry McCall, author in Canada, who wrote The Illuminati, the cult that hijacked the world. The Illuminati are the Zionists. These are the banksters. These are the secret societies. These are the high level of the Freemasons and all these other New Age cults and satanic Luciferian cults. The attitude of Jesus Christ to this sect is definitely expressed in the New Testament. See Luke 11 and John 8. I've made videos on Mark, Luke, John, and Matthew. You can go watch them. I read from the Bible where I highlighted things that Jesus said and did. It's an easy way to learn some of this stuff without having to go read it. But you should do it. We are spiritual beings in these biological bodies. There is another world there that we go to when we leave this earth, and I do think it matters what we say and do. None of us are perfect. We're all making sins. If we try to obey all the commandments perfectly, it would probably be difficult. But that doesn't mean we can't try to be decent human beings. Get some soul growth, as Edgar Casey would say. Do good things. Think good thoughts. And talking about the truth here is not a bad thought, because somebody's building this 5G network that says right here plainly, no citizen feedback allowed. All right, let's see if I can continue reading here. If I find out where I left off. Okay, esoteric Judaism, the Jewish religion as practiced in the 20th century, is based on the Old Testament and on equally ancient commentaries. In it, preserved for ages as oral traditions. They couldn't put this stuff in writing, at oral transmissions of information, and never really published it in English. They were afraid of we the people finding that information in English, like the Talmud in English. If anybody knows of one, leave a comment below. I'd like to have one and read it and show it. But apparently if you do expose that stuff, they claim in this book they'll send assassins to take you out. And not too long ago, if you exposed anything about the Freemasons, they were sending out people to kill people. So these secret societies are very protective of their secrets. and their plans for ruling the profane or the goy and cattle. So esoteric Judaism, the Jewish religion as practiced in the 20th century, is based on the Old Testament and on equally ancient commentaries on it, preserved for ages as oral traditions and known as above stated under the general term of the Talmud. All copies of this book were ordered to be burned by Philip IV the Fair, King of France, in 1306, but the book survived the Holocaust. So they're calling this a Holocaust in 1306, 800 years ago, 700 and something years ago, where this king of France ordered all of the Talmuds burned. Now, why do you suppose he did that? Where do you find out what's in it? We know that the Jewish God is not the father of all men, and the idea of love, justice, and mercy, like the Christian God, or even like Aurora Mazda or Brahma. So there are these other beings called gods who came in human form from the divine world, the leaders of the Buddhist religion, Hindu religion, Muslim religion, all the religions. They acknowledge that here. But this particular God that the Jewish people worship is not a God of love, justice, and mercy. Contraire, it's all the opposite. And they control the 5G network coming to a town near you, and all the other worldly powers with Jade Helm 15, FEMA camps, NGO, genetically modified foods, fluoride in the water, mercury in vaccines, and I could go on with this for a while. CIA involved in cocaine and heroin drug pushing. And it's not all CIA agents, it's the high level. There's plenty of evidence, and other military and police organizations got a huge corrupt system going on. On the contrary, he is a God of vengeance down to the 4th generation, just and merciful only to his own people, but foe to all other nations, denying them human rights and commanding their enslavement. So their God is commanding our enslavement, that Israel might appropriate their riches and rule over them. The following quotations will serve to illustrate this point. So let's read a little bit about what's in the Talmud, shall we? And when the Lord thy God shall deliver them before thee, thou shalt smite them and utterly destroy them. Thou shalt make no covenant with them, nor show mercy unto them. Deuteronomy, it's in the Bible, I guess you can go look it up. 7, paragraph 2. For thou art a holy people unto the Lord thy God. The Lord thy God had chosen thee to be a special people unto himself, above all people that are upon the face of the earth. Deuteronomy 7.6. And I'm not a big believer on the Old Testament. I follow the New Testament. I believe Jesus was sent by the spirit world into the baby Jesus and was communicating information from the spirit world, which said we are to love one another. I believe there are demonic beings, fallen angels, and some people are following them, and they hate God's creation, humans. They have a different way of looking at how the world should be controlled. They like being kings and queens and dukes and popes and emperors and czars and pharaohs, all these leadership and wealth, and they like having slaves. We want to bring that back. But there is a problem they have, and that is they think there's too many people on the planet right now. So they want to depopulate it. So that's why we have all that propaganda. It's not true, but they'll have people believe in global warming that we humans cause it, sustainability, biodiversity. They just don't want so many people. They don't need them anymore now with the technologies they have. The Talmud comments upon it. You are human beings, but nations of the world are not human beings but beasts. So the Jews, these particular ones, under the control of the Pharisees, are human beings, but the nations of the world, you and I, are not human beings, but we're beasts. I've said this before, and I like to read books and tell you the page number 81. And this comes from the Baba Mercia, page 114-6. That would be B-A-B-A. And the other word is M-E-C-I-A. So apparently it's one of the Talmud books. Okay, what's next thing it says here in the Talmud? On the house of the Goy, non-Jew, one looks as the fold of cattle. So we non-Jews are Goy, it says it here on page 81, which is cattle. And that's in the Tosafah, Erubin 8. The T-O-S-E-F-T-A, comma, E-R-U-B-I-N, space, Roman numeral V111. From the Talmud, a prayer said on the eve of the Passover, that would be around Easter time, where a lot of Jews have been accused of abducting little boys and putting pinholes in them with spikes and pinchers on them to inflict more pain. And as we all know today, that would release a lot of hormones into the blood. And apparently they would drink the blood or use it in some Passover bread or food, even said to eat the flesh. So I guess blood with the hormones excreted into it might cause some kind of euphoric high, even possibly used in magic to communicate with the other dimension. So from the Talmud, a prayer said on the eve of the Passover to the present day. So on their holiday of Passover, here you go, listen up. We beg thee, O Lord, indict thy wrath on the nations not believing in thee and not calling on thy name. Let down thy wrath on them and inflict them with thy wrath. So I don't believe in these statements. Like I said, I believe what Jesus Christ taught. Drive them away in thy wrath and crush them into pieces. Take away, O Lord, all bone from them. In a moment, indict all disbelievers. Destroy in a moment all foes of thy nation. So all foes of Jews. Draw out with the root. Disperse and ruin unworthy nations. Destroy them. Destroy them immediately, in this very moment. And it says it that way in the book. Oh my, you think? And they control the 5G network, HARP transmitters, chemtrailing, the military, the politicians, the banking system. And they have plans for the rest of us. So it seems. Secret societies, Zionist, Talmudic, Kabbalistic Jewish people. People running the world right now behind the scenes. A lot of the people we know as politicians are puppets. They have been, and a lot of people are aware of it. And they're using Hegelian dialectic against the rest of us, divide and conquer. And a lot of us, we the people, are falling for it. And you can go buy this book. I'm reading from the pages I just showed you. So that was in the Talmudic Judaism, quotations from Synagogue Judaica, page 212, and mentions a couple other books. I want to try to get as much of this I can into this video here. When one sees inhabited houses of the Goy, or the non-Jews, one says, the Lord will destroy the house of the proud. And when one sees them destroyed, he says, the Lord God of vengeance has revealed himself. The Babylonian Talmud, Birachot 58,6. Another thing it says in the Talmud is those who do not own Torah And the prophets must all be killed. So if you don't have a Jewish holy book, must be killed. Who has power to kill them? Let him kill them openly and with sword. If not, let him use artifices till they are done away with. So if you can't kill them directly, hire somebody, or maybe use microwave transmitters or drugs, secret assassinations. It's been going on for a while. 911. The Jewish sages soon understood that Christ's way of commenting upon the old law introduced, instead of hatred towards foreign nations, brotherly feelings and equality for all men in the face of God, thus denying the Jews their privileged positions as masters of the world. So when Jesus taught brotherly love, he was opposing the leaders of the Jewish establishment, and they're denying the Jews their privileged position as masters of the world. Page 82, this book. By a well-known author, researcher, knowledgeable person, probably one of the wealthy elite in Britain. And she writes on all those other topics I talked about. And also, just to clarify my position, I've been reading books for 13 years. These are the ones I've made videos on. So I have a little bit of background and a little bit of education. How many hours you think reading books almost nonstop for 13 years? One question is, how many hours does it take to get a PhD? I would certainly say, and not trying to pat myself on the back, but I've exceeded those hours. So what I'm trying to say is you can go look up these books when I go over the series 150, the review, get them at bookstores or book sites on the internet, verify this information, and come to your own conclusion. This 5G network and all this other technology with the beast computers spying on us, monitoring us, facial recognition, and so much more, smart meters, smart everything, smart washing machines, smart toasters. They're even talking about smart contact lenses. You see that technology in the movies where you can put it on there and it's like a TV on your eye? Some of it might sound fascinating, but when you understand, and you've seen the symbolism everywhere, satanic symbolism, Luciferic rituals, the Eurovision, like the American Idol program, singing contest, in Europe, 2014, Conchita Wurst won the contest. The face was like Jesus and the body a woman in a silky dress. Conchita and Wurst. Wurst means sausage, a male part, and Conchita means a female part, singing the song, The Phoenix Rising, which has the words in it, "You can't stop us." They're telling us what's going to happen. And just like the recent thing in Virginia and Alabama, that was all for public consumption. Citizens to be thinking one thing and fighting and dividing. Then they bring in the anti-fascists against the fascists. They can do this anytime they want, and they're probably going to step up the tempo. We're going to see a lot more of it. It will incite people. Bring out the gay pride parade people. Get out the abortion people. Just going to keep on going. Get out the anti-Trump people, the pro-Trump people. Bring Obama back into the situation. And on and on. And the people will fall for it like a rock. Hook, line, and sinker. What do you want to bet? You think people will wake up? Think we can prevent the 5G network with little tiny microwaves about the size of your cells in your body that will make your cells boil? When I worked at a major aerospace company for 10 years, there were big warning signs near the microwave transmitters. It said they would hurt you, cause cancer, make you sterile. I suppose somebody saw that and said, "Whoa, that'll make a nice weapon. Forget the warning sign, take that down. We can weaponize it. We can weaponize anything we can discover that is detrimental to humans." And apparently they're doing it. All right, back to the Talmud. At the same time, Christ reforming the very primitive and rough moral ideas of the Old Testament. So if you know what the Old Testament says, and these people were praying for a Messiah, spiritual entity coming from God, you can see why God would send a Messiah to reteach people the right way to think. It was primitive. It was barbaric. Go read it. Deprive the Jews of their very convenient, in the battle of life, unscrupulous double morality. Thence the Jewish hatred for the Christian faith is conspicuous in the following quotations from the Talmudic sources. All right, page 83. A few more minutes with this video. Can't read the entire book, but you can go buy it if you can find it. The estate of the Goys, non-Jews, are like wilderness. Who first settles in them has a right to them. The property of the Goys is like a thing without a master. The property of the non-Jews is like a thing without a master. It names the different Talmudic books these sentences are in. If a Jew has struck his spade into the ground of the Goy, he has become the master of the whole. So if a Jew comes up to your yard and sticks a spade in the ground, he owns your house and yard and farm or whatever. And I suppose that applies to everything else. He just has to lay claim to it. Because we Goy are cattle, after all. So it says in this stuff. In order to enhance the authority of the Old Testament, equally recognized by the Christians, while simultaneously augmenting that of the Talmud and the rabbis, its commentators and authors teach. In the law, the Bible, are things more or less important, but the words of the learned in the scriptures are always important. It is more wicked to protest the words of the rabbis than the Torah. So don't listen to the good Bible of the Jews, the Torah. The word of the rabbis is more important. Who changes the word of the rabbis ought to die. So if you change the word of the rabbis, you ought to die. So I guess that would keep all the Jewish people in line. The decisions of the Talmud are words of the living God. Jehovah himself asks the opinion of earthly rabbis when there are difficult affairs in heaven. Rabbi Mechanim comments for the 5th book. So their God Jehovah, when he has problems in heaven, he asks the opinion of the rabbis. Are you buying that? Jehovah himself in heaven studied the Talmud. Standing, he has such respect for that book. So this Jehovah God studies the Talmud also. I'm just reading from this book. I'm assuming, and I've done a lot of research, but Edith Starr Miller has published this, and she's quite well known. I don't think anybody's disputing that she's probably done her homework. To enhance the dignity of religious dogmas, the following commandments are given. That the Jewish nation is the only nation selected by God, while all the remaining ones are contemptible and hateful. I never had two thoughts about hating anybody on the planet my whole life. Anybody. Even no matter who they were. It just said, let people be people. But then when I saw that we're under attack, and discovered some other things like we all did after 9/11, 2001, September 11th. And then after watching the propaganda on the media back in 2008, where gay marriage had like 30% support, and the commentators at 2 o'clock at night when I was driving up the highway from Florida to New York or Maine said that gay marriage doesn't have a chance. But then I remembered about the lottery in Florida, where it lost. And some of the commenters and newscasters would say, don't discount it yet. We'll educate the people. And the next year they would vote again and get a couple more percent of approval for the lottery. After 5 or 6, 7, 8 years with all this propaganda and how the money would be spent for the school systems, guess what? They got the lottery. And with all the propaganda for years and years and all those movies about gay situations and gay people, children in school writing letters to the teacher about their gay father, whatever, guess what? It got approval. All it takes is a lot of propaganda. What did that German leader say? Tell a lie and tell it often enough, the people will believe it. So they know a little bit about the human mind, and they know how the human mind can be worn out and get weared out and don't care, and finally say, to heck with it, we'll live with it. But like I've been saying, they won't stop there. They didn't stop where they said they were going to stop. Now they're talking about lowering the age of consent to non-existence for sex with children, and pansexualism and transgenderism and so much more. The 5G network and all these other weapons they have. Jade Helm 15, FEMA camps, and these huge international corporations owning more and more of all the food manufacturing resources, beverages, and everything. And then they want to take away money, give us digital money, and you'll have to be physically hooked up to an electronic system. And God forbid you think wrong. And also, in many areas where they deem there's too many people, they could probably just push some buttons and certain peoples will just fall down dead. Who knows what evil forces that I'm reading about here in this book that hate human beings would do. Look what they have done. World wars, 9/11, revolutions, overthrowing of nations, dragging presidents and leaders through the streets, distributing cocaine, heroin, and so much more, crashing the economic system after they took over the USA money supply in 1913 at Christmas time while the politicians were on vacation. Aren't these people despicable, deceptive, insidious? All right. That all property of other nations belong to the Jewish nation, which consequently is entitled to seize upon without any scruples. So they're supposed to seize upon all the properties of all the other nations without any scruples, according to the Talmud. That an Orthodox Jew is not bound to observe principles of morality towards people of other nations. So they're not required to observe principles of morality. Of course, they're trying to destroy decency and morality in the United States and the world, and it looks like they've done a good job. It probably will be illegal pretty soon to be a Christian or to mention God, like right now in Germany and Switzerland and a lot of places in the world. Canada and Australia apparently also. You can be arrested, imprisoned, beat up, and maybe killed if you don't agree with the Holocaust story. How far will this go? And on the contrary, he even ought to act against morality. So the Jews are supposed to act against morality. So that would explain why they're in control of the movie theaters and the porn industry and the newspapers and promoting the gay agenda, homosexuality, transgenderism, pansexualism, adultery, etc., and so much more. If it were profitable for himself and for the interest of Jews in general. In this book, written in 1933, along with a few other books that I've read and made videos on, 370 videos I have posted with 500 hours of material. So with that said, I'll stop here. I could keep on reading, but I think anybody watching this video gets the point. This is what's written, and I'm paying attention to what I see, and I'm fully convinced organizations like the white supremacist groups were probably ordered out for public consumption, and the anti-groups, the anti-fascists and other groups were called out. Even in my town, I showed you that on the Series 148 video. And the other recent videos I made, 147 on the Black Sun, 146, a very important video on the Judaic Encyclopedia, the leader Chain Wiseman, his involvement in Zionism, the first president of Israel, and the Balfour Agreement, the betrayal of Germany during World War I. It's all connected. Thank you for watching my video, Rick Miracle reporting.